It was probably the 10th time that week Clara had told me to get out of her sight, but for some reason, this was the time it finally registered. A sudden, cold clarity washed over me, and I saw myself for what I was, the annoying side character in her grand campus romance. I was the guy who was always just there, following her around like a devoted dog, constantly getting in the way of her and the man who was so clearly her perfect match, right up until the day they would inevitably get engaged. The future played out in my mind like a movie I'd already seen. The entire group of friends would cast me aside. I'd be left standing alone in a downpour. I'd crash my car, break my leg. The whole tragic cliché. Realizing this, a genuine panic set in, and I started throwing my clothes into my suitcase without a second thought. I turned back to her, held up 3 fingers, and made a solemn vow. "Don't worry, Clara. I'm leaving. I swear you won't ever see me again, and you won't have to deal with me getting in your way." "Leo, can't you have a shred of self-respect?" she snapped, her voice laced with the familiar irritation she reserved just for me. "I'm trying to get rid of you, but you refuse to leave. What is your problem? Wait." She trailed off, her expression shifting as my words finally seemed to penetrate her frustration. She turned toward me slightly. "What did you just say? Say that again." The air in the room grew heavy and quiet. Everyone else present started stealing furtive glances in our direction. It was common knowledge in our elite social circle that I had been attached to Clara's hip since we were children. Wherever she was, I was sure to follow. When she decided to learn the piano, I picked up the violin in the music room right next to hers. She got into the most prestigious high school in the city, and it was no surprise when I enrolled there as well. She chose to major in the sciences, so I did the same. People used to joke about it, saying, "Leo is like Clara's shadow. You can't have one without the other." But once high school began, everything changed. Clara made new friends, and my constant presence began to grate on her nerves. She started actively avoiding me. Her most frequent refrains became, "Can you just leave me alone? Or Leo, get your own life. Am I your girlfriend now? Can't you learn to keep some distance?" Back then, I just let it all roll off my back. I suppose I had a thick skin. The next day I'd be right back there, happy and hopeful, orbiting her world. But now, with the stark realization that I was just an obstacle in her story, my top priority shifted to self-preservation. Ignoring the furious glare she was leveling at me, I finished packing and dragged my suitcase toward the hotel lobby. I held my phone up for her to see, my voice sincere and earnest. "Look, I wasn't lying. I just booked my flight a few minutes ago. I'm heading back to the university. I won't bother you anymore." Her icy, vexed stare was unnerving. For a long moment, Clara didn't say a word. She only spoke after Ethan, the story's real leading man, came to her side and whispered something just loud enough for her to hear. Then, she finally turned her head and scoffed. "Fine. Remember what you said today, Leo. Get out and don't come back." I agreed eagerly and made my escape with my suitcase in tow. By the following morning, I was back in my dorm room at the university. My roommate was still asleep, but he peeked out from under his blanket, his expression one of pure shock. He rubbed his eyes as if to make sure he wasn't dreaming. "Leo, weren't you supposed to be on that beach vacation with Clara? What are you doing back so soon? Couldn't you find her?" I couldn't really blame him for the question. Clara had orchestrated the entire trip without breathing a word of it to me. She had recently won a major international math competition and decided to celebrate by taking all her closest friends on vacation. I had only found out about it through the grapevine, and, in a move I now recognized as desperate, I had tagged along uninvited, booking a ticket on the same flight. I had tracked her location through her friends' social media posts and showed up at her hotel. The moment I walked through the door, before I could even get a word out, she had confronted me. "Leo, what on earth are you doing here? I didn't invite you. Are you serious right now? Can you just leave? After I gave my roommate the short version of the story, he scratched his head in confusion. So you just gave up and came back? I was crouched on the floor, organizing the things I'd unpacked, and didn't even look up. Yup. She was pretty clear this time. It would be incredibly dense of me to stay after that, don't you think? My roommate stared at me, completely bewildered. Have you lost your mind? How many times has she told you off before? When have you ever actually listened? Didn't you always say that Clara was just being stubborn and that she'd come around eventually? Thinking back on it now, I couldn't believe how foolish I had been. If she was ever going to come around, she would have done it years ago. I sighed and waved a dismissive hand. No more of that. I'm serious this time. I'm a changed man. From now on, I'm keeping a very real, very serious distance from her. My roommate just yawned. I'll believe that when I see it. A few moments later, his eyes widened in surprise as I pulled a study abroad application for a university in the United Kingdom from a folder on my shelf and carefully began to write my name on it. Professor Jason mentioned there's an experimental project over there that would be perfect for me, I explained. I initially turned it down without even thinking about it, but now I'm all in. Meanwhile, back at the resort, things for Clara's group had become awkward. Just as they were in the hotel lobby getting ready to take their bags up to their rooms after my departure, a hotel employee approached Clara with a confirmed room booking. What should we do about this, Miss Clara? Should we keep Mr. Leo's room or cancel the reservation? Before the trip, they had been debating how many rooms to book. Clara had eventually said with a resigned cough, "Include Leo. He's like this nagging shadow. Wherever I go, he follows. It's so annoying." Now, staring at the reservation for the room directly across the hall from hers, Clara's annoyance only deepened. The memory of my promise to keep my distance flashed in her mind like a persistent headache, and her hand tightened around the water bottle she was holding. Keep it for what? Didn't he say he was going to vanish from my life? Let him vanish. Why should I care about him at all? Her friends exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, one of them, noticing how genuinely upset Clara seemed this time, stepped in to mediate. Come on, calm down. I bet Leo is just putting on an act. He's been obsessed with you for so long. He's probably hiding somewhere nearby, just waiting for you to give in and call him back. Clara's expression softened slightly at that, and a quiet scoff escaped her lips. She thought to herself, give in? Not in a million years. Before 3 days are up, Leo will come crawling back faster than you can say desperate. That's just how he is. Besides, it was the middle of peak tourist season. It was probably better to keep the room, just in case. I told my parents about my plan to study in the UK. They were a bit surprised by the sudden decision, but didn't raise any objections. 4 days later, I had gathered all the necessary documents, filled out the application completely, and handed it to my academic advisor. She seemed surprised at first, but her expression quickly shifted to one of genuine happiness. You finally figured it out, Leo. Our university has a strong contingent of students over there. They all look out for one another, so you won't be alone. I'll sign this right now and submit it online. You should probably start packing. The flight leaves in about a week, and you'll be traveling with a group from our school. My advisor was a significant figure in her field, with former students all over the world. If she said the team dynamic was good, I believed her. I nodded, thinking it over, and left her office feeling a bit more optimistic about the future. When I reached the front of the building, I was about to hail a cab to go downtown and buy some necessities for the trip, when someone called my name. Leo, what are you doing here? I turned to see one of Clara's classmates. He was supposed to have been on the vacation, but had to cancel at the last minute due to a family emergency. He walked over, scratching his nose. Leo, are you back already? I saw on social media that Clara and the others are still there. They're all getting their diving certifications. It looks like they're having an amazing time. They've been posting a lot. Haven't you seen any of it?" "I'm not really interested in that stuff," I said, waving it off, intending to change the subject. But he was already holding his phone out for me to see. Clara almost never posted about her personal life on social media, but recently she had been unusually active. Every photo showed her smiling, looking genuinely happy. There were pictures of her adjusting her diving gear, watching the sunrise from the beach, and always, Ethan was right there beside her, laughing and joking with her. In the most recent post from that day, they had rented a boat to go fishing. Clara had caught a large fish and turned to look at Ethan, and they were both smiling at each other. The warm sunlight cast a beautiful glow on the moment. Someone who wasn't in on our group's dynamics had left a comment. "Who's that guy? He's handsome? Are we finally getting a brother-in-law? It's funny, we never see Leo around anymore." Strange, isn't it? Mentioning my name seemed entirely unnecessary. Clara hadn't replied to any of the other comments, but she had pinned that specific one and added her own reply beneath it. "Oh, him? We broke up." This classmate hadn't seen the new post or the comments section, so I pointed to Clara's statement on his screen. "Look, that's why I'm here and not there." He blushed, stammering an apology. I didn't see that. Leo, I'm sorry." Just then, my ride pulled up to the curb. I waved off his apology, laughing as I opened the car door. "Don't worry about it. Well, now you know, we're done, so you don't need to keep me updated on her life. I don't care." Did I really not care? I wasn't entirely sure. We had known each other for our entire lives. Seeing her so casually announce our breakup in a comment stung more than I wanted to admit. But a supporting character is just a supporting character. How could I ever expect to compete with destiny? I took a deep breath, pushing away the confusing tangle of emotions and focusing on preparing for my new life. I returned to the dorm with several large shopping bags. With the essentials taken care of, I began to pack my textbooks and academic journals. My roommate, who couldn't leave for the break because his research project wasn't finished, started to help. Halfway through packing, he slung an arm over my shoulder and sighed dramatically. "Man, I'm going to miss you. I honestly didn't believe you'd ever get over Clara this quickly, and now you're actually leaving. Let her regret it." I patted his arm and shook my head. To be honest, Clara won't regret it. Without me in the way, she and her guy will be even happier. Before I could say anything else, my eyes fell on the diamond bracelet I was wearing. How could I have forgotten about it? Clara's mom had given it to me on the night we graduated from high school. Both Clara and I had gotten into the same university, and our families threw a joint celebration. At the end of the party, her mom pulled me aside onto the balcony. She smiled warmly as she clasped the exquisite bracelet onto my wrist. "Keep this, Leo. We were at an auction, and Clara really liked it. You two will look out for each other in college, won't you?" The bracelet was clearly very valuable. I tried to refuse, but after a few attempts, I relented and accepted it. When I came back inside, Clara was staring at my wrist. For a brief moment she blushed, then she frowned and coughed. "Why did my mom give you that? We just bought it for fun. Never mind, it looks good on you. Keep wearing it." It was the first and only gift I had ever received from Clara. I was ecstatic for days afterward. Her parents had bought a large condominium in the city for her to use during college, and they had even set aside a room for me, just in case I didn't like living in the dorms. I didn't stay there often, but I couldn't refuse her mom's enthusiastic hospitality, so I ended up leaving some clothes and personal items there. The room also housed a collection of gifts I had given Clara over the years. Every time I gave her something, she would claim she didn't like it, and then toss it into that spare room. I touched the cool diamonds on my wrist. Now that I was leaving, it was probably time to clear everything out. The next day, I took a taxi to the apartment downtown. Clara hadn't returned from her trip yet, so naturally, no one was home. I still remembered the door code. Clara's mom had specifically given it to me. But when I typed it in, the lock didn't budge. I realized Clara must have changed it at some point. I frowned and tried several other combinations. My birthday, her birthday. I even looked up Ethan's birthday in the school directory, but nothing worked. Finally, I decided to call Clara. She didn't answer the first few times. Just as I was about to give up, her relaxed, lazy voice came through the phone. "Leo, why are you calling? Weren't you the one who swore you'd never show up in front of me again? And you couldn't even wait a few days?" She laughed, a sound that seemed to release a tension I hadn't realized she was holding. "You said you were interested in diving, right? Why don't you just come back? I see some vacant rooms at the hotel. If you want, I can talk to the front desk and have them hold one for you." I took a deep breath and quickly cut her off. "No, Clara, don't hold a room for me. I wasn't planning on coming back. I'm standing in front of your place on Zhonghuan Road right now. Can you tell me the new code? I need to get inside to get something." There was a moment of silence on the other end, followed by a distinct clicking sound, like someone lighting a cigarette. So, she was smoking again. I had told her countless times how much I hated the smell, but it never seemed to make a difference to her. In a cold, detached tone, Clara asked, "What for? You don't have much in your room, right? Just a few clothes. What are you doing, preparing to pack up and run away to another country?" My heart skipped a beat. I didn't want Clara to find out about my exchange program just yet. I wanted to tie up all my loose ends quietly, without any unnecessary drama. So I sighed and invented an excuse, denying her surprisingly accurate assumption. "Isn't New Year's Eve next week? I got you a gift. I wanted to put it in the house to surprise you." Every year on New Year's Eve, Clara and I had always been together. Sometimes we celebrated with our families, other times with friends. But no matter what, when the clock struck midnight, we were always facing each other. Not this year, though. My advisor had contacted me. My application for the exchange program had been approved. I was scheduled to leave on New Year's Eve, so at midnight this year, I would probably be on a plane with the other exchange students. The next moment, as if she was letting her guard down, Clara chuckled and gave me the code. 0904. You couldn't guess that? How dumb. It's the date we left for college together. The start of college? I was a little surprised, but didn't dwell on it. After hanging up, I took the bracelet off my wrist and placed it inside a red velvet box. I positioned the box on the coffee table where it would be the first thing someone saw when they walked in. Then, I went to the spare room and gathered my things. Clara was right. I didn't have much. Just some clothes, all of which fit into a small suitcase. But what she didn't know was that, aside from my clothes, there was something else I really wanted to take with me. I opened the bottom drawer of the desk. Tucked away at the very back was an envelope. Inside was a long sheet of paper. It was a list I wrote every year, detailing all the things I hoped to do with Clara in the future. Attend a massive concert, go bungee jumping, scuba diving, see the auroras, travel the world, climb snowy mountains. There were so many things. Whenever Clara seemed to be in a good mood, I would carefully and casually bring up one of the plans. My thesis is almost done, and the advisor said we don't need to be in the lab all break. I saw a short video about diving recently. It looks fun. Do you want to try it sometime? Clara hadn't replied, too absorbed in typing on her phone, chatting with someone. After a while, she looked up and glanced at me briefly. "What did you say?" "I didn't catch that. Ethan needs me for something. Let's talk later." But over a month passed. Finals came and went, and Clara's math competition results were announced. To celebrate, she booked a trip to Hainan. I thought it was because of what I had said that day. I waited and waited with excited anticipation until her plane took off with all of her friends, and I finally realized I had never been part of the plan. On that trip, people noticed that Clara wasn't her usual self. Even though she was the one who had brought up diving, she seemed completely uninterested, skipping most of the group activities to sit alone by the beach, staring at her phone as if waiting for a message. Someone thought she was preoccupied with schoolwork and asked if she wanted to go back early, but she just shook her head. It was only when I, the person she so often complained about, called her that her mood seemed to lift. After our phone call, she stretched, a wide smile spreading across her face as she looked out at the ocean. I knew he wouldn't last long. Turns out it's for a New Year's gift. How lame. Turning to her friends, she announced a change of plans. We were going to celebrate New Year's on the island and fly back the next day, right? Why don't we go back early and have a party at my place instead? Oh, and Leo hates the smell of smoke, so none of you are allowed to light up. The plane landed on the last day of the year. By the time Clara finally drove into the downtown area, it was already getting dark. Standing outside her apartment door, she suddenly felt her heart begin to race. A confusing mix of thoughts swirled in her mind. Mysterious. Why did he need to set up a surprise so early? She placed one hand on the doorknob and slipped the other into her coat pocket, where she had a gift she had brought back from Hainan for him. Taking a deep breath, she tried to calm her nerves. This was the first time she had been away from Leo for such a long time, and she wasn't quite used to the feeling. He should be inside the apartment by now. He was probably in a bad mood since he didn't get to go diving. She planned to comfort him with a few kind words and then give him the gift. Hopefully, he would go back to being carefree and happy, the way he used to be. While she was lost in her thoughts, her friends started cheering from behind her. "Open the door, Clara. Didn't you say you were taking us to your place for New Year's? Leo's here, right? We haven't seen him in ages." "Of course," Clara replied, an involuntary smile almost breaking out across her face. "Leo's been in here preparing a surprise gift for the past few days." With a brief pause, she entered the code, and the door swung open. "What's all the noise about? Everyone be quiet." The apartment was empty. Even with 6 or 7 people stepping inside, the huge space still felt vast and vacant. They all stood there, stunned. "Where's Leo? Weren't we supposed to celebrate New Year's together? Where did he go?" someone asked. "Maybe he just stepped out for a minute," Clara said, though her voice lacked conviction. She ignored everyone, her brow furrowed in a tight line as she opened door after door, but there was no one there. Where did Leo go? He had promised. Just as her mood had started to lift, it came crashing back down. Clara picked up her phone, ready to call him, when one of her close friends ran in from the living room, holding the red velvet box. "Clara, check this out! Isn't this the gift from Leo? It was sitting right in the middle of the coffee table with your name on it." It was a beautifully wrapped box with a sticky note on top. On it, in small, neat handwriting, were 3 lines of text. "Clara, take this. Wishing you everything you desire. Wishing me a future that's free. Leo." Clara let out a sigh of relief and managed a small smile. He took this long just for this? So dramatic. She peeled the sticky note off, slipping it into her pocket. Carefully, she opened the box and froze. It was the bracelet, the one she had picked out herself. Back in the summer after their high school graduation, she had watched from behind a doorway as her mother put it on Leo's wrist. So pretty. It suits him so well. She had thought he would wear it forever, but it had only been a few years and he had left it behind. A wave of panic washed over her. Clara looked down at her phone and found Leo's contact, initiating an audio call. Instantly, a red exclamation mark appeared on the screen. "The other party has added you to their blacklist. What a stunning diamond bracelet, someone commented nearby. But why is it a man's bracelet? Did Leo give this to you to give to Ethan? Clara whipped around, pushing the person away. Her eyes were turning red, her lips pressed into a tight, thin line. Her entire body was trembling slightly, as if her emotions were a fragile thing that had just been shattered. Shut up, you're talking nonsense. She borrowed another friend's phone to call Leo again, but the result was the same. The call wouldn't go through. She tried another, and then another, all with the same outcome. It seemed that Leo had blocked her entire group of friends in one single, decisive action. Ethan came over and gently took her wrist, speaking softly. Clara, calm down, okay? Leo has his own things going on. If he's not here, we can still celebrate the new year together, right? Clara pulled her hand away. For the very first time, she felt a sense of resistance toward Ethan's touch. How could it possibly be the same? 1,000 people, 10,000 people could never compare to having Leo here. At the stroke of midnight, they had never once been apart. She stepped back. Her brow furrowed deeply as she scrolled through her phone, desperate to ask someone, anyone, if they knew where he was. Suddenly, a notification from the university's official page popped up. Announcement of students from our school selected for overseas exchange programs. She clicked on it, and her eyes immediately found that familiar name. Our group of students heading to the UK consisted of 5 people. One of them was someone I knew from a long time ago, a classmate from elementary school. I was shocked when I saw her. She had changed so much. Back then, she was short and chubby, always bundled up in a thick down jacket trailing behind me. She would ask the most childish questions. Leo, how do you do long division? What's a multiple? Can you explain it to me? I can't figure out the essay topic. I want to see yours. In the 5th grade, she transferred to a school in another city. I had heard that her parents were leading a national scientific research project and were heading off to complete some top-secret task in a remote location. We lost touch completely, until now. Someone called my name from behind. Leo, long time no see. I turned around slowly. After 10 years, the little girl who used to cling to my backpack, begging me to wait for her, had grown up. She was wearing a dark gray coat and looked to be nearly 6 feet tall. She pulled down her mask, revealing a face as striking as any celebrity's. I'm Sophie, she said. Remember me? Happy New Year, Leo. I was in the theoretical physics department. Sophie was studying applied mathematics. Our buildings were just across from each other, separated by a tree-lined path. Yet in 3 years of college, our paths had never once crossed. Luckily, we had both signed up for the same exchange program. When I saw the acceptance list, I immediately went to check with your department's office, and it really was you, Sophie said. She told me she had actually tried to find me before, back in high school. Her parents' project was nearing completion, and she finally had a chance to travel. She took a train all the way back to our old hometown. We had been just kids when we last saw each other, with no way to contact one another. The chances of meeting again were incredibly slim. But she was persistent. She went back to our old elementary school and asked our former teacher which middle school I had gone to, and then which high school. She waited at the school gates for days, hoping to catch me after classes let out. She never found me. Instead, she ran into Clara. Clara was leaving the basketball court through a side gate, heading to a nearby shop for a drink. She stopped in her tracks when her eyes landed on Sophie. You look familiar. You're not from our school. Who are you looking for? With a slight bite of her lip, she had an intense, sharp look in her eyes. I think I recognize you. You're that kid from the 2nd grade who transferred away, right? I was surprised Clara even remembered Sophie. She had been in the 4th grade at the time, not even in the same class as us. I didn't think she would have had any impression of her at all. But Sophie just shook her head. No. Back in elementary school, didn't you two walk to and from school together a lot? I was always walking behind you asking you questions, and she would glare at me like I was trying to steal something from her. She must have remembered me from then. Sophie hesitated for a moment. I asked her if you were still at the school that day. She told me your family had moved away and wouldn't be coming back. She looked directly into my eyes. I found out later from other classmates that you graduated from that high school. You never moved away, did you? If it hadn't been for Clara's lie, maybe Sophie and I would have reconnected much sooner. Why would she do something like that? It was completely baffling. We chatted the entire way through boarding the plane, and then met up with the other classmates in our group. Everyone was seated near each other, and it was nice to know we could look out for one another during the long trip. The other students, despite being academic prodigies from various departments, turned out to be surprisingly down-to-earth and cool. We all shared snacks and talked about the research papers and projects we were working on. That's how we passed the time for more than 10 hours. Wrapped in a blanket, I looked out the window at the shifting clouds and remembered what my mentor had said about studying abroad. Maybe I should get out more. The world out there is big and bright. Senior students from our lab were at the airport to pick us up. They were incredibly welcoming, helping us carry our luggage back to the dorms. From them, I learned that the school had set up a special account to promote our research project, but it only listed our names, not our specific exchange institutions, which I appreciated. Before I had boarded the plane, I had deleted Clara and her entire circle of friends from my contacts. After what happened on New Year's Eve, I had decided to cut all ties with that part of my life. I had no desire for them to know where I was. Honestly, Clara probably didn't even care. The past few weeks had been peaceful. My life fell into a simple rhythm: attend classes, read academic papers, and then run experiments in the lab. Sophie and I had overlapping research interests, so we often went to the library together to exchange notes on recent papers and conference materials. Sometimes she would bring her laptop over to the lab. She'd type away at her own work while watching me handle the experimental equipment. When the building closed for the night, we would walk back to our respective dorms together. My life started to have a comforting, predictable routine. Occasionally, I would get late-night calls from distant classmates. They would pretend they were just calling to catch up, but it was obvious they were fishing for information. Where I was, what institution I was at, who I was with. We had never been close, our only connection being a few shared courses. It was clear they were calling at someone else's request. I mostly ignored their questions, offering only vague, non-committal answers. Eventually, the calls stopped. I thought everything had finally blown over until a few days ago. After finishing an experiment and having lunch with Sophie, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Clara. In her time zone, it must have been late at night. "Leo, weren't we supposed to spend New Year's together?" Her voice was raspy, as if she'd had a lot to drink, and she sounded disoriented. "I waited for you all night. I looked for you everywhere. Leo, you just left me a bracelet. Are you telling me you want nothing to do with me? Are you just going to throw me away?" I could hear other people in the background. Her friends were all vying for the phone, making sure I could hear them. "Leo, when are you coming back? Why did you get into a fight with Clara and block the rest of us too? I miss your chocolate cake. Clara's been drinking and calling out your name every night. It's been really tough on all of us. Where are you studying? We'll fly out to see you." I remembered the original plot of the story I had woken up in. In that version, her friends had never liked the main character. No matter how hard he tried, gifting them things, cooking for them, learning about their interests, nothing worked. They all adored Ethan. Later, when Clara started dating Ethan, they were afraid the main character would tell her parents, so they tricked him into going to a secluded house and locked him inside. That day, he had a high fever and was struggling to breathe, nearly passing out. With no phone to call for help, he climbed out of a window, but a passing car skidded on the wet road and hit him, crushing his leg. Even if I hadn't personally experienced those horrific events, even if that was just a version of Leo from a parallel world, someone completely unrelated to me, I still felt a wave of nausea reading those words and listening to Clara's friends now. My fingers clenched around my phone. I didn't say a single word. I just hung up. Sophie noticed the dark expression on my face and glanced over at me. "What's wrong?" she asked. I gritted my teeth and snorted. "Clara, that jinx," I hissed. She was taken aback for a moment, and then she smiled slightly. "She's definitely going to find you, Leo. No matter what happens, I'm on your side," she reassured me. And Sophie was right. Clara did show up. For my entire life, I had been the one chasing after her. But this time it seemed different. She was standing at the entrance to the lab, wearing a lightweight coat and a scarf. She was obviously dressed up, but her pale complexion and the gloomy aura around her betrayed her true state. There were dark bruises under her eyes, as if she hadn't slept in days, and she looked noticeably thinner. "Leo," she said, managing a faint smile as she raised her arm to show me several large bags she was carrying. "My mom asked me to bring these for you. She's been busy at home making all sorts of food lately: beef jerky, cake rolls, snowflake crisps, grilled sausages. I tried them, and they're really good. She insisted that I bring some over for you." Clara could be infuriating, but her mother was a different story. She had always been kind to me, ever since we were little kids. When my own parents were busy with work, they would often leave me at Clara's house. She had a room full of toys and games, and her mom always made sure she shared everything with me. Sometimes, when Clara and I would argue, her mom would take my side. "Leo is a boy. Why is a girl like you always fighting with him?" she would scold. "Leo has such a good temper, and you still manage to argue with him." I suppose they both knew I would never go against her mom. Clara had even called her to smooth things over before coming here. Her mom apparently didn't know we had fought. She seemed to think Clara was just visiting me for fun. "Leo, I heard you went on an exchange program. I haven't seen your parents lately. Clara told me that our family's business is mainly domestic, so she might not get many chances to travel abroad. Please show her around and take care of her," she had said over the phone. Before I could even respond, Clara had taken the phone back. "Okay, Mom, don't worry," she had said. I rolled my eyes in frustration. I was genuinely ticked off. To get the ordeal over with, I sped up my pace and started giving her a brisk tour of the campus. "This is the library, the cafeteria, the gym, the art hall." Clara was carrying a heavy load of bags. After a long international flight, she was clearly jet-lagged and exhausted. She struggled to keep up with me, visibly wobbling at times. Trying to make conversation, she said, "This place is really beautiful, Leo." Even though I repeatedly told her to go back to her hotel and get some rest, she just shook her head. "I'm not tired, really. It's okay." The truth was, she was a world away from the person she used to be. Back then, she would have been teasing me about being her little shadow, impossible to shake off. I was getting more annoyed by the second, and didn't want to drag this out any longer. I stopped walking, turned to her, and coldly threw her own words back in her face. "Clara, can't you have some self-respect? Can't you see I'm trying to ask you to leave? Why do you keep tagging along like a shadow?" Her face fell, the color draining from it until it was a grayish white. Her lips quivered, and her fingers clenched and unclenched at her sides. Just as I thought it was over and started to walk away, she rushed forward and grabbed my wrist. "Don't go, Leo, don't go. Please, just listen to me." Clara's voice trembled, and she was using all of her strength to hold on to me. "I'm sorry. While you were away, I did a lot of thinking. I know I messed up. I'm stubborn. I care too much about my pride. I don't respect other people, and I always gave you the cold shoulder. I'm a horrible person. But can you please not give me a death sentence yet? Just give me one more chance. Please? She pulled a velvet box from her coat pocket. When I looked down, I recognized it as the one that held the bracelet I had returned to her. It even had my note still attached. Sandy took a deep breath, trying to force a smile. You left this on New Year's Eve with the note. I've read it so many times. May you achieve your desires, and may I find freedom ahead. But Leo, I like you. If the old Clara had said those words to me, I would have been ecstatic. But now, everything was different. I had grown up, too. I had seen more of the world and met more people. The small, suffocating world I used to live in couldn't contain me anymore. I slowly pulled my hand away from her grasp and shook my head. No, Clara, you've got it all wrong. I wrote that note because I thought you and Ethan were perfect for each other. Besides, I just received an email from the lab here with an offer for a research and work position. I might be staying here for a while, maybe not returning home for a few years. Just like I said before, let's just cut ties. Clara was expected to take over her family's company after graduation. Her family's business had some unique restrictions. They couldn't establish branches overseas, and most of their high-level executives had to report any international travel each year. So when I made this decision, I knew it meant cutting all ties with Clara permanently. She looked at me, her gaze deep and pained, as if all her energy had been drained from her body. She began to explain nervously. Ethan and I have nothing going on. I was just looking after him because he's new in town and doesn't have any relatives here. But why should I care? I turned away from her and shrugged my shoulders. I appreciate your mom's kindness, Clara. You don't have to explain anything. I don't even like you. Goodbye. Immediately after I said it, my eyes glanced over to someone who was walking on the path beside the trees. A girl was carrying a stack of papers, probably having just left the library. I wondered how much she had heard. Why hadn't she greeted me earlier? I said I don't like Clara. Did you hear me? Sophie's ears turned a bright red. So, what is your type? I reached out and poked the dimple in her cheek. Take a guess? Epilogue. Before midnight on New Year's Eve, Clara had sent everyone home. She searched every corner of the apartment, looking for any trace of Leo that he might have left behind. She found nothing, until she noticed some shredded paper in the trash can in the corner. For some reason, she felt it must have been from him. She spent the entire night painstakingly piecing the tiny scraps of paper together. Eventually, she reassembled a list of all the things Leo had wanted to do with her. The first item on the list was to go diving. Clara probably didn't remember it, but back when their families had gone on an outdoor trip together, Leo had fallen into a reservoir. The adults were all busy preparing lunch by their RVs and didn't notice. It was Clara who had jumped in and saved him. She was his lifesaver. He had to stick close to her after that. And he had to learn how to swim, so she would see that he wouldn't be such a burden next time. Clara stared blankly at the words. She had no idea that Leo had wanted to go diving because of that incident. She had thought it was just a random suggestion he had made. It felt like she couldn't breathe, a sudden overwhelming weight pressing down on her. She squatted down, picked up her phone, and opened the article on the university's public account again. And there, she unexpectedly saw Sophie's name. Sophie, someone she truly couldn't stand. Clara couldn't quite explain why. Maybe it had started back in elementary school, when that little girl would always follow Leo around, chattering constantly like a little tail. She had finally transferred schools, getting away from her, but she still came back, looking for him. And now, they had reunited in this way. Clara felt a sudden, sharp panic. The thought unconsciously formed in her mind. During his time abroad, would Leo develop feelings for Sophie? Would he forget about her? Would he stop forgiving her? It turned out that Leo really had moved on from her. The house code was still 0904. It was supposed to be for the first day of college, but it was actually the date of the first time they had ever flown on a plane together, alone. Clara never changed the code. She couldn't say if she was waiting for Leo to come back, but he never returned to that home. After graduating, she joined her family's business. Getting involved in the day-to-day operations, she lost any chance to ever reach out to him again. Over the years, she felt herself growing dull and numb. Even her old friends drifted away. Many of them had relied on their family businesses, and after losing that support, they faced a steep decline. Some came from spoiled backgrounds and took dangerous paths to try to maintain their lavish lifestyles, only to end up behind bars. Some were used as pawns by their families, traded off to rivals to buy time, and faced even worse fates. And others simply sank into oblivion after their families' companies went bankrupt, living day by day without any hope. As for Ethan, he married a woman 14 years his senior, wealthy but reckless. She heard he didn't mind her lifestyle, but Clara didn't care about any of it. She focused only on her work. In her spare time, she would pick tasks from Leo's shredded list and complete them on her own. She went to a concert alone, went skydiving, even tried bungee jumping. When she saw the news of Leo and Sophie's engagement in the alumni group chat, Clara was on a snow-covered mountain. She kept looking at their photo, zooming in and out 1,000,000 times until both her eyes and her chest ached with a pain she couldn't name. Still, she couldn't figure it out. How had things gotten to this point? The snow was falling hard that day, and the wind howled. Someone rushed past her, and she heard staff members shouting about an avalanche warning, urging everyone to evacuate immediately. She got up, then sat back down. Forget it, she thought. Let the story end here. Clara closed her eyes. As the snow began to collapse with a thunderous roar, she stretched out her arms, pretending to embrace the Leo from years ago, the one who once had eyes only for her.